Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to all the viewers on our channel Bodhi Prep. And today we have a reading exercise for you. And a few months back we had designed a video on how to become a good reader. Many people found it very helpful, and so we thought that let's start with a series of sessions wherein we would be reading a paragraph and telling you how to become an effective reader of reading comprehension passages. Let me make it very clear, people, that things which you read on daily basis out of like or preference is different from what you are going to read in the CAT reading comprehension, or maybe reading comprehension of any exam. Because reading comprehension does not give you passages which you like. So you should be ready to read something even if you don't like that thing. That is very important. Because most of us have this preferential habit, in the sense that we would like to read science fiction, we would like to read politics, we would like to read sports column of newspapers. But in reading comprehension, you will not get a passage of your choice or of your liking. So the problem is that you should be ready to read whatever you come across, and you should be able to read with the same purpose and intention and maybe the same degree of enthusiasm. So the first rule is that never have any kind of dislike for any kind of passage, because that dislike would be a big barrier. You should read the passage with the same kind of enthusiasm or interest as you would have read anything else which you like. So today we are going to read a passage, and as I have written on the right hand side, you can see here it says the idea behind effective reading is to give more time to the questions than to the passage. So I have been repeating this again and again, that reading comprehension becomes different from other exercises is because in reading comprehension you are expected to read the passage and solve all the 4 or 5 questions within a span of 2 minutes per question. So you have less than 10 minutes for a passage having 5 questions. And within that 10 minutes, you have to read the passage, you have to read the question, read the option choices, and then mark the right answer. And while doing this, you have to also ensure that you carry out all the reasoning process, correct? So let's read this and see how exactly we can map the passage, and how we can better understand the passage. The first paragraph says what can be done about the drug problem. Despite frequent proclamations of war and dramatic increases in government funding, there are many indications that the problem is not going away and may even be growing worse. If there were a serious public debate on this issue, far more attention would be given to one policy option that has just begun to be seriously considered, and that is legalization. So, because you are settling down, if you read this first paragraph, you realize that the author seems to be talking about drug problem, and he says what can be done about it. And it is not going away, it's growing worse. So if there was a debate, then one policy that would be seriously considered is legalization. So the author says that the growing drug problem can be countered by legalization. So if you have to summarize this paragraph, there is only one sentence which I would create: that drug problem is getting worse, and the best and the one option of overcoming that problem is legalization. That's my job done. Let's go to the second paragraph. He says there are 3 reasons why it is important to think about legalization scenarios. Even though most Americans remain hostile to the idea, first, current drug control policies have failed. So the author in this paragraph seems to be giving the reasons as to why legalization is the option. So, rather than getting into the very thick and thin of what is going on, you can say that first para says that the legalization is the solution to the drug problem, and why legalization is the solution. So he says that first, the current drug control policies have failed. That is one reason. Second, many drug control efforts are proving costly and counterproductive. And then third, he says there is good reason to believe that repealing many of the drug laws would not lead, as many people fear, to dramatic rise in drug abuse. So many people would say, boss, this is the first point, this is the second point, this is the third point, this is a very important, let me memorize. People, there is no need to memorize. You can only say that in the second paragraph, the author is giving 3 reasons as to why legalization is a way out, or is a good policy, or a good solution. So if there is a question on why the author is considering legalization as a good solution, you can come back to this passage. This is what we call as mapping the passage. Mapping the passage doesn't mean that you memorize everything. Mapping the passage means just know what exactly has the paragraph to say. That is enough. Now let's go and take the next paragraph, right? So if I go to the next paragraph, it says, by most accounts, the dramatic increase in drug enforcement efforts over the past few years has had little effect on the illicit drug market in the US. Since 1981, federal expenditures on drug enforcement have more than tripled. State and local police were estimated to have devoted 18% of their total investigative resources, or close to $5 billion. So what is this paragraph all about? This is about drug enforcement effort has had very bad effect, or has had little effect, not bad effect. So the enforcement efforts have not been good. This is what comes in the third paragraph. No problem. There is no need to remember 18%, no need to remember 86. Okay, you know that 81 and 86 has come in this paragraph. So if there is a question which has 1981 word in it or 1986 word in it, you can come back to this paragraph. Otherwise, there is no need to bother about it. Further, it says, of greater concern than the actual expenditures, however, has been the diversion of limited resources, including the time and energy of judges, prosecutors, and law enforcement agents, as well as scarce prison space. There are connections between drugs and crime which would be much diminished if drug prohibition laws were repealed. So again, he comes and talks about enforcement efforts and the drug drug prohibition laws. So he is in favor of repealing the law. Let's go ahead further. It says many cocaine and heroin addicts spend hundreds and even thousands of dollars a week. If the drugs to which they are addicted were significantly cheaper, which would be the case if they were legalized, the number of crimes committed by drug addicts to pay for their habits declined dramatically. So the author is considering the economic aspect of it. So later on in the middle of the passage, he discusses that if we legalize it, then what economic returns would we get? So again, you can just say that this para is talking about economic aspect, and if there is a question on economic aspect, I can come back to this paragraph. All vice control efforts are particularly susceptible to corruption, but none so much as drug enforcement. What makes drug enforcement particularly vulnerable to corruption are the tremendous amounts of money involved in the business. Today, many law enforcement officials believe that police corruption is more pervasive than at any time since prohibition. Some police also recognize that enforcing the drug laws do not protect victims from predators so much as it regulates an illicit market that cannot be suppressed. So here you have the corruption aspect. So the economic aspect is parallelly going along with the corruption idea and how the corruption thing has crept in. That is all you need to understand. And further, when you go down, it says repealing the drug prohibition laws promises tremendous advantages. Between reduced government expenditures on enforcing drug laws and new tax revenue from legal drug. So basically he says that it has lots of advantages. And what are those? So you have reduced government expenditure, and then there would be tens and billions of dollars of money which would be there with the government. The quality of urban life would rise significantly. Homicide rates would decline. So would robbery and burglary. So all the good things that might come out if we repeal the laws. There is good reason to doubt that many Americans would inject cocaine or heroin into their veins, even if given the chance to do so legally. The logic of legalization thus depends upon two assumptions: that most illegal drugs are not so dangerous as is commonly believed, and that the drugs and methods of consumption that are most risky are unlikely to prove appealing to many people. Now, people understand this. When you are reading, you may not be able to get to what exactly these two assumptions are. There is no need to worry about it. You have to understand there is a good reason to doubt that many Americans would inject cocaine or heroin into their veins, even if given the chance to do so legally. The logic of legalization. So the author is giving basically justification of legalization. So there are lots of other benefits, but the logic of legalization has come towards the end, in which he talks about two assumptions. Repealing the drug prohibition laws would eliminate or greatly reduce the drug problem. Yet legalization is repeatedly and vociferously dismissed without any attempt to evaluate it openly and objectively. So the author says that the legalization is dismissed by people without evaluating it openly or objectively. And that is what he says, that we should consider the option of repealing the drug prohibition laws. Now, I have read this passage. It's a long passage, people. This passage is roughly of 670 words. So when you say 670 words, that means it's a long passage, because most of the passage that you come across in the CAT exam would be between 600 words, not more than that. So this has 70 words more. But you might come across 700 word passage as well. So there is no hard and fast rule that all the passages will be below 600. Of course, they are around 550, 600. And this 550, 600 word passage will have around, let's say, 5 questions or 6 questions maybe. Now we have read the passage. Now the point is, once you have read the passage, there are many people who would like to go back again and read the whole thing. This is the first mistake we make. Whenever you read something back, when you go back to something, you are taking time to read the passage. And the more you develop the habit of going back and reading again, the more time you will consume. So the idea is that you have to ignore the intricate details. That is what precisely I told you. That wherever something is intricate, in the sense that lots of details are given, you just throw it out. Map the key nouns. So if you ask me that what are the key nouns here, the first key noun that I encountered in my reading was the word legalization. Legalization and repealing of the drug prohibition laws. So there is a law which prohibits drug, and the author says that because of that law we have many problems. And what are those problems? So he says that problem is corruption somewhere in the middle of the passage, and then he says that if we remove that aspect, then we will have lots of economic benefits. Towards the end, he gives a justification that why the two assumptions are very important. And then he says towards the end that many people have been very dismissive about the legalization aspect. So overall, if you ask me what exactly is the gist of the passage, I would say that there is a drug problem which is getting worse. The author is in favor of legalization. He then goes and talks about the 3 reasons why he favors legalization. And then in the next paragraph, he talks about what exactly are going to be the economic benefits of the drug enforcement. He says that there is a huge cost to the government, and if you get rid of that, then there would be economic benefits. There are corruption issues which has been discussed somewhere in the middle of the passage. Then towards the end, the author says that if you get rid of the drug the laws, then you will have lots of other benefits, which he says that homicide rates would go down, robbery, burglary would go down. And then towards the end, he cites 2 assumptions on which his logic is based. And then towards the end, he concludes. So I have the map. The map is that there is legalization, there are reasons of legalization, there is economic corruption aspect, then there are the benefits overall to society if you get rid of those laws, and then towards the end the 2 assumptions have come. So this is what we call as getting the gist of the paragraph. Leave that part which you find difficult to understand. Now this is very much a simple, straightforward passage. There is no need for you to say, boss, is this having some kind of philosophical phrases and nouns? No, we don't have anything of that kind. And this is a typical CAT reading comprehension passage. This is the kind of language you are going to come across in the RC. So please understand, people, that 2 things are very important. First of all, the way you map the passage. And secondly, the way you extract the critical information. Because once you have got the central idea in place, you will be able to answer many of the questions. In fact, you will be able to eliminate many of the options. Why? Because they are conflicting with the central idea of the passage. So there are always choices which are, contrary to what is given as a central idea of the passage. And therefore, they are not the right choice. So once you get the crux of the matter, you are right up there to take the questions. And depending upon what the question asks, you can go to that part of the passage and try to find the answer. So this is how you have to become an effective reader. So this is just second video that we have in the series. We will be creating more such videos. And if you're finding it helpful, please do mention that in the comment, or the kind of things that we should do to make you a better reader.